those questions.
Are you a bit concerned about the new manifesto that both of your parties now seem to have after quite a range of commitments through that debate?
Look, if you look at the bowel cancer screening, for example, we set out a manifesto today, a fiscal plan today that's got $14 billion of extra health spending so that we can do things like the commitments that I indicated today. Probably the one that we're going to need to think about is the menopause leave. I was clear that we're not signing up to a specific commitment around that, but I don't have a problem with the concept.
You seem to... Nurses pay parity and charities tax, I mean, again, serious topics. Are you serious about doing something about them?
Sorry, what was that?
The nurses pay parity across all of the different...
Well, we already are.
sites.
No, we already are doing that. So we put about $200 million into that this year. That's about, I think from memory, it's about an 8% pay increase for those nurses who are working in those services. Pay parity for public and private sector workforces is a really challenging thing to do. I've been working on that in early childhood education, for example. It doesn't happen immediately. It is quite complicated in terms of just making sure that the money that you're putting in actually gets to the workers concerned. But yes, absolutely, we want to make sure they get it.
You seem tax. I mean, is that it's kind of something that's been tossed around a bit this year, but is that something you're serious at looking at?
Absolutely.
You seem to get under his skin quite a lot there, and he wasn't that great on his feet reacting to you. Do you think a man that showed the sort of composure that you saw tonight from Chris Luxon is fit to be Prime Minister? As
Prime Minister, you are constantly scrutinised, you are constantly under pressure, and you have to be able to perform in those circumstances.
You gave yourself 8 out of 10 last week. Last week. What would you give yourself for today?
I just told Amelia I wasn't going to give myself a rating for today, but probably a 9.
You definitely seem much more fired up today. I mean, is this the chippy that maybe should have been out in the campaign a few weeks ago? Look,
the campaign might have started slow, but I've decided I'm going to enjoy the last 2.5 weeks of it, and so this is the level of energy you're going to see from me in the next 2.5 weeks.
You do acknowledge it was a slow start for you?
Yeah, look, I mean, it's been a challenging year, and our campaign probably took a wee while to get up a decent head of steam, but I'm really enjoying myself now, and I'm fully going to enjoy the next 2.5 weeks of the campaign.
What does enjoying yourself look like?
What's that?
What day this week did you start enjoying yourself?
I've been enjoying the campaign all the way through, but I particularly enjoyed tonight.
Can you explain what exactly you mean by start enjoying yourself? What does enjoying yourself on the campaign look like for Chris Hipkins?
Well, it means saying what I think, and it means doing the sorts of things that I want to do in our campaign.
So you're not holding back anymore? No
nope,
holds bar?
Absolutely not.
Are you 100% sure that you were overseas on Martiriki?
Yes. I think I might have actually got back into the country on the day itself, but yes, I was.
Why didn't you do anything? You definitely got back in the country on the day of Martiriki. Why didn't you do anything?
Because I needed to sleep.
And the quote you referenced from the New Zealand First candidate, can you explain your reasoning for using that?
Because I think that New Zealand First and the ACT Party particularly are putting out the sorts of messages during this campaign that are designed to divide New Zealanders, and I think New Zealanders deserve better than that.
Who was the candidate?
What did you make of Christopher Luxon's response when he was asked about Winston Peters and working with him? I mean, what should voters make, I suppose, of that potential dynamic between those three parties?
It is very clear that Christopher Luxon trying to cobble together a government that involved New Zealand First and Winston Peters and David Seymour in the ACT Party would be a recipe for instability and chaos. I think New Zealanders deserve better than that, and a party vote for Labour will give them better than that.
He says he doesn't know Winston Peters. I mean, is that a great start for the formation of a government?
I'm not sure where he's been for the last 40 years.
You talked about the New Zealand First candidate. Who was that?
Robert Ballantyne, I think his name is. He's the Rangitata candidate. It was at a Meet the Candidates meeting in Rangitata last week, and I got sent a transcript of what he'd said.
You talked about a slow...
Of the whole New Zealand First party. Are you saying that they are a racist party?
Those are the sorts of messages that New Zealand First candidates have been putting out there around the country.
Are they a racist party?
I think that's absolutely a racist statement, and I think New Zealand First are absolutely playing the race card in this campaign.
You talked about a slow start to the campaign and that you're going to bring more energy from this point. Haven't you left it too late? People are already voting.
Look, the overseas votes have opened up today. Actually, voting here in New Zealand doesn't open up until next week.
Are you able to put a target on what a revved-up Chris Hipkins is going to look like in terms of in the polls? Are you wanting to get back above 30?
What we've seen is the National Party are peaking in the polls. They've peaked in the polls. They're coming back down again. The gap between the centre-left parties and the centre-right parties is actually closing in most of the recent opinion polls. And New Zealanders clearly don't trust National. They can trust me and they can trust the Labour Party.
What's your target, though?
My target is to win.
Labour's continuing to drop in the polls too. You dropped one point in TNZ's poll tonight.
Look, we're not moving much, but we've got to get our numbers back up again.
You're dropping 1 point a week.
They're dropping 1 point a week too.
Yeah, it's not a very good...
The overall centre-left vote is growing.
Is your secret
favourite weapon now to convince as many people as possible that Winston Peters will be a terrible person to have in a government?
I don't think it's a particularly secret strategy. It's quite an overt one. A coalition of National Act and New Zealand First would be disastrous for New Zealand.
Because that's not actually an attack on the National Party anymore. You're actually now going after Winston, aren't you, and his credibility and his reputation.
Well, it's difficult to attack the National Party because they're simply not saying anything. They're not releasing any of the information about what they're proposing to do. No, they haven't released any of the information about how they're going to pay for any of the commitments that they're making, and I think New Zealanders deserve to know that. We set out our fiscal plan today. Everybody can scrutinise that. They're talking about not releasing it until towards the end of the week. The fact they want to dump it on a Friday afternoon after everyone's gone to the pub shows that they're embarrassed by it.
2 days ago, Winston Peters said to me, "You just watch, Labour is going to go dirty and negative on me and New Zealand First." Is this it starting?
I don't think that holding them accountable for the racist statements that they are making is going dirty.
You said, obviously, Winston Peters ruled Labour and you out first, and then you ruled them out. Hand on heart, would you have ruled him out if he hadn't done that
Yes.
to start with?
Yes.
So this would have been your position regardless
Yes.
of what New Zealand First would have said?
Yes.
And what are the reasons?
I've worked
for
with
that?
New Zealand First before. I worked with Winston Peters in government in the last term of government, and I wouldn't do it
And
again.
what are the lessons from that? I mean, why do you say that you wouldn't work with him because of that time?
Winston Peters' decision-making is erratic. He's an unstable force of chaos in government, and I wouldn't work with him.
Christopher Luxon, he almost committed to decriminalising MDMA tonight. You seem pretty open to decriminalising drugs. Is that something you'd commit to if you're re-elected?
I said that I thought that these issues should be approached on a bipartisan basis with health at the forefront of those discussions. I'm not sure what Christopher Luxon's position was by the end of the debate because he had multiple different positions during the debate.
So basically you're saying if National wasn't committed to it as well, then Labour wouldn't look at it?
I don't want it to become a hugely divisive issue.
What was the hardest question you answered tonight?
I thought they were all pretty good questions.
Could you?
Hardest.
I'd have to go back and look at it, but I thought they were all pretty good questions.
Could you ever see yourself, after politics is over and neither you or Winston are around in politics anymore, just getting a beer with him? Chewing.
I can't imagine why I'd want to do that.
So it's such a deep-seated, it's not just a political difference of opinion, it's a personal dislike of the man.
No, I don't like what Winston Peters stands for.
Are you enjoying yourself now, given the polls, that the weight of expectation of winning has gone off your shoulders?
No one's voted yet.
But they have.
Well,
Overseas voting is open.
only a handful of people will have voted.
It seems like kind of as the polls have gone down, you've become cheerier.
Well, look, I'm going to get stuck into this campaign. I'm determined to turn this around and make sure that we win.
You're going to get stuck into this campaign.
Well, I am getting stuck in. No, I'm getting stuck into this campaign, but it's going to be a slightly different campaign in the last couple of weeks as we really sprint towards the finish line.
Are you releasing the inner mongrel?
What is it about today that has changed for you? Why? Why has it taken until today?
I don't think it's taken until today.
You said that today. I literally asked you that before, and you said...
I said I'm going to enjoy myself in the campaign, and that's exactly what I'm going to do.
Are you releasing the inner mongrel?
I'm not sure how to take that question, Jason.
You're gonna get a bit more feisty on the campaign trail.
Let me be really upfront with you. I'm going to fight to win.
Is this pretty much it in terms of policy and that sort of thing? Do you see the last fortnight really about just going out there and pitching the plan that you've announced? Is that the kind of idea to clear the decks ahead of early voting?
We've set out a really forward-looking plan that's really positive about New Zealand's future. I stand by every one of the commitments that we've made, and I can tell you that all of our numbers add up. Christopher Luxon can't make that same commitment.
Like is your policy, is your manifesto pretty much it?
We've still got a few little bits and pieces still to announce, but the main bits are all out there now.
Are these 17 days the biggest in your political career?
Of course.
Can you? I'm confused. Why were the first 3 weeks of the campaign so slow and, as you say, low energy? Why?
6 weeks election campaigns are a marathon, not a sprint, but you get to the sprint at the end.
But why were you? You know how much is at stake. You've been talking about how much is at stake this election. Why were you not high energy the entire time? Why did the sudden shift?
As I said, election campaigns are a marathon, not a sprint, but you do get a sprint at the end.
So when you say you're going to fight to win, what does that look like for the next 2 weeks?
Well, it looks like what you saw tonight.
Chris
Which is?
Luxon,
How do you describe that?
Energetic.
Chris Luxon gets up at 4:30 in the morning. What time do you get up?
It depends what day of the week it is and what my schedule is for the day.
Are you the king of the zinger? You got a few good licks in there?
I'm the king of the gingers.
Thank you.
Okay, I think that's the end. All right.
I didn't vote for you.
Well, that shut Jason up.
I don't know. I'm just the jester of the gingers.
The jester. Not the Queen, not the Princess.
Oh no, I wouldn't. I mean, we have a
Still live.
literal prince who's a ginger, so we'll probably let him have that. Prince Harry.
Oh, yes.
You forget?
You can just see why we are straight.
So you got all of that?
I did mention
Cool.
that.
The whole nation.
Kia ora, good evening everyone. Good to see you all. With that, happy to take questions.
You said that you were open to potentially a charities or church tax. Would you introduce one of those if your foreign buyers tax doesn't work out like every economist has predicted?
Not every economist is saying that. Every economist is saying there's no way that GST on fruit and vegetables will get through to a consumer or a customer. But what I'd say to you, we are very confident in our numbers and our ability to raise those revenues. But
Would you introduce one of those taxes?
what I'd say to you is that we're very open to looking at the charity taxes and making sure those settings are right.
If you're so confident about the numbers, why wouldn't you stake your leadership on not being able to raise the revenue from that foreign buyers?
Well, actually, what's really important is actually the outcome we're looking for is actually to deliver tax relief to low and middle income earners. That's the most important thing.
You said it's
There are
solid several times.
Sure.
You said that people can have confidence.
It is,
you've
absolutely.
given your word, so why
Absolutely.
not take that next step and stake your leadership
Because
on?
actually what's important is I'll stake my leadership on not delivering tax relief to low and middle income New Zealanders. There are multiple ways in which we're going to raise revenue. There are multiple ways in which we're going to save and reprioritise wasteful spending. In the aggregate and the round, what's important is that I actually deliver tax relief to low and middle income New Zealanders.
Any government can deliver tax cuts with the stroke of a pen, pass legislation that's done. The hard part is going to be raising the revenue. So are you not confident enough in your numbers that you would stake your leadership on?
I am absolutely confident. You know, what is important here is we're going to have a self-funded, fully funded tax plan independent of our fiscal plan. That's what I've committed to doing for a long time, and that's exactly what we will deliver.
If you're Prime Minister, you're going to have to go to the UN, you're going to have to stand up in the House. Do you think somebody that lets Chris, the current Prime Minister, get under your skin so easily is fit for that job?
Look, I think it was a really robust debate. I really enjoyed it. You know, it was a very different and freewheeling debate tonight, and you know, I thought it was a good debate.
Do you think you're quick enough on your feet? There was a number of times where he got the better of you.
Look, he came out pretty aggressive. I thought what was interesting, he spent most of his time talking about National and us rather than actually talking about his record or his ideas to take the country forward. And I think that was the disappointing part of the debate. But look, you know, at the end of the day, it was a great debate and it was good fun.
Do you regret not putting your full fiscal plan out before voting opened and before tonight's debate?
Look, I mean, our fiscal plan will be out on Friday. As I said, there's been some really big, challenging sets of, you know, it's really important. We've got a deteriorating set of books. They're rapidly deteriorating. We want to understand them properly. There's been some fiscal cliffs in there. We're actually funding for things like school lunches and Farm Act were turned off, and you've actually got to make sure they are fully funded. And as a result,
2.5 weeks since pre-food, and you've now broken a promise because you said you'd have it before voting started. So is it worth it that you've broken a promise?
well, it's important to get the numbers right, so that when we come out on Friday, that everyone can have confidence that we've got a fiscal plan.
Were you planning to have it out by now, but the numbers have been too difficult and it's taken longer?
We just want to make sure we get it right, and so we're making sure we get it out on Friday.
Just to be clear,
early voting in New Zealand starts on Monday.
You planned to have it out by today when voting opened, but you didn't meet that deadline. Is that correct?
We wanted to make sure it was available for voters, but in New Zealand, early voting starts on Monday, and that's what we're trying to do.
Mr. Hipkins read out a quote from a New Zealand First candidate, which you yourself said was racist. Why are you willing to work with that party?
I don't want to. That's my last resort in order to actually make sure that,
willing to do it to gain power?
in order to avoid, I think, what will be absolute chaos and terrible outcome for New Zealand, which is Labour, Te Pāti Māori and the Greens working together. And so that's why my message to New Zealanders has been very consistent. I don't want to have to work with New Zealand First, but I will do it as a matter of last resort if it means not having a Labour-led government for the next 3 years.
By specifying, though, that you would work with New Zealand First, I mean, you potentially are giving them more oxygen, you're potentially giving them more support.
I've laid it out really clearly to the New Zealand people. It's up to them. If they don't want that to happen, then they need to vote for National and actually party vote National. That's been my message very strongly. Our strongest preference, my first preference is to work in a very stable two-party coalition with National and ACT. But if the option is, if that's what I have to do to pick up the phone to Winston coming out of aged care and taking on jobs in the DHB, old DHBs, for example, because they are better paid. We've got to make sure we equivalise that.
Yeah, so how much is that going to cost you?
I don't know off the top of my head, but we've talked about it as part of our plan, and Shane Reddy and I have talked about it, and it's been part of our policy and our conversations for the last year.
On bowel cancer screening, basically scaling up when they lowered it for Māori to 50. Doing that for the whole population would be about $100 million a year. So you'd commit to that?
Yeah, well, I said to you, we're open to, we will seriously look at it, and it's just about a question of how we actually deliver it and actually get it done. We've had a government that talked about breast cancer screening and extending that 6 years ago, and has only announced it in the last 20 days. We've believed in that because it's actually quite cheap and reasonable to do, and it has a huge benefit, and we'll look through bowel cancer in the same way.
And when would you do that? First term?
We'll look into it in our first term, absolutely, yep.
Do you feel like Chris Luxon smack you around a bit out there?
Well, I was just saying before, it was great fun. I think the winner on the night was actually